Two men who lived lives of designer-clad excess driven by greed and protected by layers of secrecy have finally seen their empire crumble under the weight of justice. Michael Sherwood is 53 and Simon Johnson is 43, portrayed themselves as ordinary men in the town of Warrington. But behind the mundane facades of suburban homes lay a vast and deeply embedded drug empire, propped up by bulk supplies of Class A and B drugs, high-level underworld contacts, and a digital network they believed to be their invisible shield. When police officers finally stormed their home in coordinated dawn raids, they weren't just walking into scenes of criminal enterprise, they were stepping into the lairs of men who had made fortunes of misery. There, among piles of cannabis and mobile phones, lay the unmistakable symbols of life steeped in illicit luxury. Christian Louboutin trainers, Gucci aftershave still boxed and gleaming, and Rolex watches still ticking as if time hadn't just run out. For months, the pair had moved through the underworld with the silent confidence of men who believed they couldn't be touched. They didn't speak over phones, they didn't deal in person unless necessary. Instead, they operated through EncroChat, an encrypted communications platform so secretive, so heavily encrypted that it was marketed as untouchable by law enforcement. It caters only to criminals, no casual users, no outsiders. Sherwood and Johnson were known on the network as Roof Tile and Rocket Hawk, aliases as detached from reality as their understanding of consequences. But in May 2020, that illusion of invincibility shattered. An unprecedented international operation cracked EncroChat's encryption. Hundreds of millions of once private messages suddenly became evidence. Codes, conversations, and criminal confidences that had once been invisible were now laid bare for law enforcement across Europe. Among those exposed were Sherwood and Johnson, and when Cheshire Constabulary's Serious and Organised Crime Unit began sifting through the data, what they found was breathtaking. Their conversations painted a portrait of a sophisticated, well-oiled criminal operation not only distributing narcotics, but managing them like businessmen. They spoke in volumes, never grams. They negotiated prices, planned logistics, and celebrated profits. They were connected to major players, including a Liverpool-based drug supplier who went by the code name Alison Becker. He was no street dealer, he was a wholesale trafficker, and Johnson and Sherwood were two of his most trusted clients. In a short period between March and June 2020, Johnson and Sherwood coordinated the supply of at least 6 kilos of coke, purity high, value higher. That alone had a street value of hundreds of thousands of pounds, but that was just the beginning. Messages revealed plans for a further 3 kilos with another supplier. Cocaine was at the sideline for them. It was the core of their empire. Alison Becker. He was meticulous. He kept records in Excel spreadsheets. Each cell, another nail in the coffin. The details, the drugs delivered to Johnson, the amounts owed, payments made and debts outstanding. On one occasion dated April the 8th, 2020, Johnson arranged to buy a kilo of coke for £42,000. Days later, he turned it around for £44,000. Clean, quick profit. That same transaction was repeated 6 times, 6 kilos, over £250,000. But guys, if you deep that, check that out. So you bought it for 42, you flipped it for 44, you made £2,000, sold 6 kilos, made 12 grand. I'm going to come to a point in a moment. So their reach extended beyond cocaine. The pair were also responsible for moving up to 103 kilos of cannabis again, not in tiny deals but in wholesale volumes. Alison Becker supplied 35 kilos. Another supplier provided Johnson with 10 kilos at £5,500 each. Sherwood took charge of the logistical side, coordinated collections and deliveries, ensuring the drugs made it safely from warehouse to streets. This wasn't a two-man operation working off instincts. It was layered, deliberate, professionalized crime enterprise. But beneath the professionalism was arrogance. Johnson was so trusted by his suppliers that he was allowed to rack up staggering debts. At one point, he owed Alison Becker a total of £371,800. He had repaid £280,000. The amounts involved were staggering. The trust placed in him even more so. All the encrypted messages, the spreadsheets, the quiet confidence, it all began to unravel once EncroChat was breached. Each message became a thread, and detectives pulled them with relentless precision. The net closed in on December 3rd, 2024. At dawn, armed with intelligence and evidence, police executed warrants at both men's house. At Sherwood's flats, the team found a large quantity of cash, multiple phones used for drug operations, and quantity of cannabis. At Johnson's more lavish address, they found more cannabis, another encrypted device, and the unmistakable signs of wealth: boxing memorabilia, high-end designer items, and an £11,000 Rolex glistening with pride of a man who thought he had outsmarted the system. He hadn't. They hadn't. So both men were arrested and charged with a series of offences: conspiracy to supply Class A, conspiracy to supply Class B, possession with intent to supply Class A, possession of criminal property. There would be no courtroom battle. The evidence was too overwhelming. The digital trail too damning. Both pleaded guilty. Liverpool Crown Court became the stage for their downfall. Johnson, the orchestrator of the enterprise, was sentenced to 10 years in prison, and Sherwood, his trusted lieutenant and logistical support, was handed a 7-year sentence. Detective Chief Inspector Nick Henderson of Cheshire Constabulary Serious and Organised Crime Unit spoke after sentencing, delivering a stark warning to those who think encrypted phones can shield them. He said these men, they weren't street leaders, they were high-level suppliers, deeply embedded in a sophisticated criminal network. Johnson was the leader, trusted with vast sums of drugs and credit. Sherwood made sure the product got from A to B. But they grew complacent. They believed that because they used EncroChat, they were invisible. They were wrong. They delivered in luxury, believing the misery they distributed would never touch them. But thanks to international cooperation, patient detective work, and their own arrogance, we were able to dismantle their network and bring them to justice. Their downfall should serve as a reminder to all criminals: no system is unbreakable, no message is beyond reach, and no one is above the law. So this story of Sherwood and Johnson is not just a tale of crime, it's a cautionary epic of arrogance, greed, and the unrelenting pursuit of justice. They built an empire on addiction and despair, carefully crafting a world where encrypted phones replaced accountability and designer labels masked their true identities. They weren't just dealers, they were architects of destruction, moving drugs through communities like silent storms, leaving chaos in their wake while they counted their profits in silence. For a time they believed themselves as kings, untouchable, untraceable, beyond the reach of consequence, but they forgot one simple truth: no matter how deep you bury the truth, no matter how sophisticated your tools or secure your secrets are, justice is patient, justice listens, and when time comes, justice strikes. Now, I said I was going to come back to a point. So it was stated that they purchased it for £42,000 and sold it for £44,000. So they made a £2,000 profit. Now, you're thinking, oh, that's a good quick flip. But what if the package that you purchased got taken off you? You got robbed, you got jacked. What are you going to do then? You're going to have to get all the 21 more packages just for yourself to break even and pay off that debt to somebody else. So you're never going to make it big. Stay legit.